So the three tests that I administered Henry were the running record with the comprehension conversation in the 6 dimensions fluency rubric, and the two subtests I gave him were the maze assessment and the vocabulary and context. I'm going to be discussing the results and also what I made of them. So first, I conducted the running record. I actually had to do twice in order to get a better understanding of his fluency. So I first had to calculate his reading level 2, since middle schools don't tend to use Fountas and Pinnell to assess reading levels. I even asked my mentor teacher this, and he said that only the elementary schools in the district do. I also picked nonfiction text level Y because that was at a slightly lower than 8th grade reading level because his MAP score was below average. And also, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that Henry only made 4 errors that he never self-corrected, and he also self-corrected twice. This would put him at a 98% accuracy rate, which was his independent level. His errors I saw either came from just trying to fill in the word from looking at the first 2 words, like for instance, he read the instead of this, and he struggled with decoding more words with more than 2 syllables. Like for instance, experimentation, he read as experimental. But this is really to be expected from a middle school age student who might have difficulty decoding words of such level. So for the comprehension conversation, I noticed that it was a different story. He actually received 1s all across the board, within the text, beyond the text, and about the text. More specifically, I noticed that he would hyper focus on a handful of details. Like for instance, when I asked him, what did you learn about the International Space Station, he only said it's getting built in space, it's a big station of space shuttles to hold them, and it's still in construction. He kind of repeated this in the about the text question, how the author described the ISS. He said that the space station will be big and people can bring space shuttles there. So he really only focused on the space shuttle aspect there rather than the whole thing. So he received a 3 out of 10, which is of course unsatisfactory. In the 6 dimensions fluency rubric, I noticed that he had pretty decent fluency. He had good pausing. He did alright with phrasing, rate, and integrating all of it together. But his stress and intonation, I rated a 1 because he read kind of flat at points. But he did tell me that he didn't really like reading, so I chalked it up to him just wanting to get the text over and done with. And as for the subtests I gave him, I wanted to assess his comprehension because I noticed that was his biggest struggle. I gave him the maze assessment, and unlike my other assessments, I actually got to do this outside in the hallway with him. So I gave it to him, and he got 5 out of the 50 wrong, so 45 out of 50. It put him at a 90%, which was his instructional level. It suggested that while comprehension and context wasn't a problem, it was still something that Henry could be reasonably instructed on. So basically, he could be instructed on comprehension and context. As for my second subtest, I actually got put at a standstill there because there were no other comprehension tests. He was good at phonics and phonemic awareness. He doesn't need help with fluency, so I had to get some outside input, and I was directed to the vocabulary and context. I picked 5 words as instructed. 1 was tier 1, 2 were tier 2, and 2 were tier 3. And I noticed that, yes, vocabulary and context is also a big struggle for him. So for instance, the tier 1 word that I picked was orbit, and the definition the worksheet wanted was the path of a spacecraft or other man-made objects as it travels around a planet or other body in space, but Henry said in order. As well, for tier 3 word, deteriorate, the worksheet wanted to worsen condition or to disintegrate, but Henry only said lose. So basically, he either gave like simple definitions or definitions that focused too much on the text and not like general, like in components. They wanted parts and pieces of something, he gave them all the stuff that a spaceship needs. So he was at a 6, and a 6 at that level is unsatisfactory. As I said before, the general purpose of these sub-assessments were to assess his comprehension. I just want to see where in comprehension he was struggling, because I couldn't really make my lesson specifically on comprehension alone. That'd be way too broad. So the testing situation, there was a little table in my mentor teacher's classroom, like off to the side. He typically uses those for like tier 2 instruction, sometimes for other students to sit, and I would sit with him during either the work time in ELA, or Henry's also my mentor teacher's advisory period, which is basically just an academic support period. I would have to do these Thursday because Tuesdays, the only other day I'm there, are shortened days, and it would have been really difficult to try to get him to do it during a shortened day. So, while I would have liked to do it in a separate environment, the classroom would have been not my mentor teacher's, and it would have been asking way too much of her. And also the fact that it was done during like independent work time or no work time at all meant that he could focus on the assessments without worrying about work. So some student strengths I noticed: he just demonstrates proficiency in phonics and phonemic awareness. He can also attempt to sound out words that he doesn't know. Basically, with the running record, he would try to sound out those 3 to 4 syllable words, and he demonstrates adequate fluency, which basically doesn't need any intervention there. As for student needs, I noticed that he struggles with comprehension, more specifically main idea and details, which, as I said before, he would hyper-focus on like 1 or 2 or 3 specific details rather than like the whole picture. And he also sometimes struggles to pick out the appropriate word to use in a context. Like, for instance, with the maze assessment, the first one he responded chuckle instead of glimpse, even though that wasn't the right context. And also, Henry tends to focus too much on one context when determining vocabulary, or just give like a simple definition. So some implications for classroom text: I would first provide Henry with explicit instruction finding the main idea, including like strategies they can use to locate it. We kind of talked about that in class. Like model comprehension strategies with Henry, such as like developing background knowledge and making connections to information, as well as when reading nonfiction and fiction text, model like general reading comprehension by having an explicit discussion about the context of text, more specifically like what's important, what he should know. Using this information, the next video will describe what I did for remediation.